Hey, welcome to Books on Books. I'm Books. I'm looking at the wrong spot. There you are. I'm Books, and this is the book that I just read, 1984 by George Orwell. Wow, what a read. Um, the last time and only other time I've read this was back in the 1980s, and it made an impression on me at the time. But if you asked me what the story of 1984 was before me rereading it now, I would have said something about thought police and about Big Brother. That's probably what most everyone associates with 1984 is Big Brother is watching. Now, George Orwell, this was published in 1950. So George Orwell had just lived through World War II, everything that led up to World War II, World War One. Those wars didn't happen all that many years apart from each other, and he had witnessed the rise of communism in the Soviet Union. And by 1950, Mao Zedong and the Communist Party had taken over in China, and George Orwell was very much against communism. He valued the worth of the individual and the cause of individual freedom, being able to do what we want as long as we're not hurting anybody else, to do what we want, and really ultimately, the great ideal of that uh, is to follow after all that is good, to to worship God according to the dictates of our own conscience. In 1984, that's completely eliminated. The party has complete control, and this is the way that they control everybody is, first of all, surveillance everywhere. There are cameras and microphones. Doesn't mean somebody's watching, but it does mean at any given time someone could be watching. The other thing is these cameras are part of a camera screen system where a screen is feeding propaganda nonstop to the to everybody. Everywhere you go, there are these screens that feed the message of the state. The state is called INSOC. And in fact, in 1984, there are three countries, INSOC, or Oceania, their government's called INSOC, Eurasia, and East Asia. And these three countries are constantly in different alliances and wars with each other as they fight over the resources of the rest of the world. Basically the rest of the world is like third world, and they're pretty much taken advantage of for their resources to fuel the systems of the three great world powers. Another thing that's a huge part of this dystopian world created by Orwell, the thought police, thought crime. It's a terrifying thing to consider. When thought crime is a thing, the way that plays out is anybody can accuse somebody of a thought crime. And how do you defend yourself against an accusation of a thought crime? And the way that someone who has been accused of a thought crime, the way that they're handled is either they're executed, and not only executed, they're eliminated. There's no history. There is no history in 1984. Only a narrative that the government is feeding the people, and they're constantly doing what they call rectifying the documents and records of the past. And could you imagine, you can't defend yourself against an accusation of committing a thought crime. And I hear people suggest that we live in 1984 today, and that's, though surveillance is certainly a thing, and propaganda is certainly a thing. We fortunately we don't have thought police, but it seems to me that right now the way that we do something like that is the canceling in the cancel culture, and the fact that someone can express something, using their free speech, and if others find that objectionable enough, they can just cancel that person and make sure that their message isn't heard. And certainly it's difficult to get along. We all have different ideas. Not only that, I think that most of us have experienced change in our ideas over time. 1984 is a fantastic book. I don't want to give away anything from the story, but there are some. This is a cautionary tale, and it's a reminder to me that we need to always preserve freedom. Freedom of the human conscious. Certainly, we do things to prevent each other from. We have laws to prevent each other from causing harm to others, but it's also very important that we stress some principles that I think aren't getting stressed very much right now, like tolerance on all sides. I think that also we need to be willing to hear and say the truth, even if it hurts. That this concept of safe places, especially at universities, it blows my mind, because where else but a university should ideas come and compete? And when those ideas are competing, I would hope people are getting offended as they're challenging one another. That's how that's how I think, as a society, as a human race, that's the way that we get better. That's the way that we learn. And I think that the process of learning can bring all of us together. That freedom must be preserved. And 1984, the place that's most likely living something very much like this is North Korea. And certainly there are all kinds of tyrannical type governments that control people. And I think we need to always be ready to resist forces that might seek to control and take away that which makes us human, which is our intelligence and our ability to have ideas, to discuss ideas, to challenge ideas. And go back, read 1984. It's good. I hardly scratched the surface. I if you came with me this far on this video, thank you so much. It makes me happy to be able to express my thoughts about books, and especially books that talk about really important issues about our society. And I love books like 1984 that project into the future, that the imagination of someone like Orwell playing out how he could see things going into the future and doing it in such a way to leave with us a cautionary tale. I think that the fact that Orwell put the concept of Big Brother is watching into human consciousness, I think that that's probably done a lot to at least provide some resistance to what governments attempt to do. Certainly, if governments could, you know, they would, or people in governments who get control, there are people who get control who would like to control people, and that can't ever be allowed. Thanks for joining me on Books on Books. Again, I'm Books, and that was George Orwell, 1984. What's coming up next is something by Arthur C. Clarke. So, looking forward to that. Like and subscribe, like they say, yeah, and share. Thank you.